Hello again, whiskey friends. I've got to get through this review somehow and not get demonetized, so I have to figure out a way to censor myself throughout all this. I think I got a plan, but I got to make sure not to slip. Now, I never expected to look up community guidelines on YouTube before I go into a whiskey review, just to make sure I'm using the right words. Curious what I'm talking about? Well, you're about to find out. Thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right, I'm going to pour a little bit of the sample here. But what we are getting into today is a bottle I didn't necessarily expect to get my hands on. I heard about it because it was released during Bourbon and Beyond, and I thought it sold out. And I think there was like 2,000 or 3,000 bottles in this batch. But what we are talking about today is APW. Of course, I can't say the name that I want to say. That's right down there written out, but I will avoid cursing all over this review, and we'll just call it APW here. It's a Heritage Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. We'll get into that in a moment. 10 years old and 100 proof. Now, this is batch one, and notice it's only 200 milliliters. So essentially the fact that it's got this name goes in with the fact that it's a flask too, and it fits right in your butt pocket. I can say butt throughout this review. I don't know if I can say the other one. I don't curse that often either. So with this brand, this is actually a celebrity whiskey. The same company that helped Kings of Leon with their brand like 2 years ago is helping Derek Trucks with this one, who is a guitarist. You can look him up. The main thing that I saw that he was the Allman Brothers Band guitarist from like 1999 through 2010 until he then went into his own band. I'll read the description here. It's a shame that so many folks these days are buying the best whiskey in the world and not drinking it. We put the rare stuff in a butt pocket so you can crack it and pass it. Bourbon wasn't made to be admired on a shelf. We say, have your whiskey, drink it too. Signed, Derek Trucks. So that is the premise there. Let me pull up the stats. I already kind of went over most of them. But the one thing on this was, so this mini bottle was $50. So a little bit of a novelty on this. I must admit, even I fall for the marketing sometimes. And this one got me hook, line, and sinker. I couldn't resist. Now, I got this in Northern Kentucky at one of my favorite stores called Revival Vintage Bottle Shop. It's 100 proof, and it's got a 10-year age statement on it. I did try looking stuff up online, and I couldn't tell if like it's a blend of 10 years or if 10 years was just the youngest whiskey in the blend. It's got quite a bit of oak once we go through the flavor profile. The other thing they put a lot of emphasis on is the fact that it's Heritage Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. I mean, it's also 10 years old too, but that makes me lean towards the fact that it's coming from Heaven Hill, Buffalo Trace, Turkey. There were rumors that this was Buffalo Trace, but I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical on the profile. I've got other thoughts. Not that it really matters that I have to be a skeptic about where it came from or try to guess it, because I'm not going to get my answer. But when you see the flavor notes, and I'll show you some of my thinking, I think it's something else. I don't think it's Buffalo Trace, but the cherry's there. And I think that's why people lean into it. So let's get into this one here. And then we'll also have a discussion about the 200 milliliter bottle at the end of the review. So thank you for joining, everybody. Cheers. So I'll load up the flavor profile here so you can kind of see what I'm going to be talking about as we go through this. Very consistent whiskey too, from the nose, front palate, mid palate, into the finish. A lot of the same consistent flavors. Now, up front on the nose, man, that oak is really hitting me today. It is oaky. So that 10-year age statement that it holds, that's why I even speculate if there's something even older in this blend. But it does have quite a bit of oak, very dark leaning profile. At least on the nose, it does brighten up a little bit come mid palate. but on the nose, very dark leaning. Get a lot of brown sugar, baking spices, molasses, something real dense and thick. And then the thing that makes me skeptical that it's just Buffalo Trace is that it's dark cherry and orange are the flavors that I get on it. And I've never gotten orange on a Buffalo Trace. But they do so many weird things. Who knows? Let's go in for a taste. Oh, yeah. Man, it's really hitting today. Tell you what, I guess I'm getting a little further down in the bottle. But that was a really, really good sip. The thing that really struck out to me there, 100 proof, so it's nice and inviting, not abrasive at all at any points in the process, and the age could be really, really attractive to people. You do get that oak right away. That dark, dense oak is omnipresent throughout all this. Now, up front, I do get, going back to those brown sugars, the molasses, the sweetness. That's what really, really comes through. And then getting into mid palate, that's when the cherry and the orange really start hitting. Now, one thing that is interesting, it does have a nice transition point going from mid palate to the finish where it brightens up a little bit and it introduces some vanilla and some toffee. So you get some really good range of flavors throughout that experience, even though it is 100 proof and nice and inviting. So I do think for that point, this is a very accessible whiskey. All right, one more sip. Let's see if I got anything else. Oh, yeah. So with all that said, here behind the scenes at Hello Again Whiskey Friends, we meticulously grade these whiskeys, whole bunch of scales behind the scenes, but they could be summarized into a flavor score, which is just how good it tastes, an experience score, the complexity of the whiskey, how balanced is the whiskey, how long is the finish, more of a technical score, and then the value, how happy am I with the price paid. Now, the flavor score on this one gave it 8s across the board. As I said, it's just a very, very accessible, inviting whiskey, and the flavors aren't going to blow your socks off, but they're all great, and it's got some nice transition points. Experience, doesn't have necessarily the complexity or anything like that, but does have a decent finish. It's got a nice creamy mouthfeel, so it's got a lot of pluses there. Then the value. Now, I only paid $50. I debated how to do this on the value. I mean, it's a 200 ml bottle. So if this was a full bottle, it would be somewhere between $175 to $200. And in general, I'd say the whiskey in the glass is comparable experience-wise to like a Henry McKenna 10-year or E.H. Taylor single barrel to a certain extent. And we'll go off MSRP on that. But that's kind of the flavor profile that you're getting on some of that. So that's where I brought down the value a little bit. It is funny, though. It's good marketing. I mean, it caught my eye. I mean, I really just couldn't resist once I saw it. So I was going to pay the price. And I have been one to say, I wish more brands would do this on the 200 ml bottles. So we'll get back to that conversation. Let me get to the final score here. Final score, 81 out of 100. So very good whiskey across the board. If you got this, you wouldn't be disappointed. Just keep in mind, though, you're paying for some of the novelty there. Now, with that in mind, this idea of putting good whiskey in 200 mLs or 375s is something I've always discussed because I don't drink the entire bottle. I typically go through maybe 3 or 4, 5 ounces at most of a bottle myself before just trying to share it away because I got to move on to the next bottle, the next bottle. So I always thought, man, it would be great if I could save money and more people could get the whiskey if they would do more things like this. But then, of course, it's still $50 and you got to decide what you want to do with that. But I'm glad I spent $50 and not $200. So there's that. I wish more brands would do that, though. Let me know what you think in the comments of that idea. Now, in terms of any other comparisons I can do on this one, I don't think it's Buffalo Trace. It's got that nice cherry note. But I did do a comparison to E.H. Taylor head-to-head. And, man, the cherry Buffalo Trace just seems totally different, unless these are just weird off-profile barrels. The one that it really reminded me of, I almost wanted to crack this open I've got this WB Saffel back up that I haven't gotten into, and this is what sprung in my mind, an older version of WB Saffel. So take that as you will. Hopefully that guides you on what to expect from this whiskey if you choose to pick it up. And if you were at Bourbon and Beyond and you got this whiskey and you got to try it, let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, bye.